Hello everyone, and welcome back to True Storyteller. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episode. Story 1: The day had started off like any other, with the usual morning routine of coffee and a brisk walk through the neighborhood. I was eager to return to the comfort of my home, which had become a sanctuary from the chaos of work and daily life. As I approached my front door, I noticed something unusual, a faint, uncomfortable draft. My heart skipped a beat when I saw that the door was ajar. I immediately quickened my pace, my mind racing with thoughts of what could be inside the lock. Usually so reliable was broken. The once a secure barrier had been forced open, leaving the door slightly swinging on its hinges. It froze for a moment, my breath catching in my throat. The sense of violation was immediate and overwhelming. I took out my phone and dialed 911. My hand trembling as it tried to stay calm. The dispatcher assured me that help was sent away and advised me to stay outside until the police arrived. As I waited on the porch, my mind whirled with anxiety. Who could have done this? Why would someone break into my home? The questions were endless, but the answers eluded me. The wait seemed eternal, though it was only a few minutes before the flashing lights of the police car illuminated the street. The officers conducted a thorough search of the premises, carefully inspecting each room and corner. They took note of the broken lock and the forced entry, and they collected fingerprints and other potential evidence. Despite their meticulous efforts, they found none inside. There were no signs of forced entry beyond the broken lock, no apparent damage to the interior, and none hiding in the house. As the police conducted their investigation, I began to walk through the house, trying to gauge the extent of the intrusion. It was then that I noticed the unsettling changes. Small personal items had been moved or tampered with. My heart sank as I saw that the photographs that once adorned the walls were now askew, some even missing from their frames. In the bedroom, my jewelry box had been riffled through. The delicate pieces of jewelry that had been neatly arranged were now scattered, some missing entirely. I felt a wave of nausea wash, checking and rechecking locks, screwing every noise or disturbance with heightened anxiety. The intrusion had shattered my sense of security, and the physical repairs could not mend the emotional damage. The police continued their investigation, but without more concrete evidence or leads, progress was slow. I was left to grapple with the aftermath, trying to rebuild my sense of safety and reclaim the comfort of my home. Each day was a struggle to find peace amidst the lingering shadows of the intrusion, a reminder that my personal sanctuary had been breached by an unknown and unsettling presence. The experience had changed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. The intrusion into my personal space had left a mark on my psyche, a constant reminder of the fragility of safety and the impact of having one's most intimate spaces violated. It was a stark lesson in the vulnerability we face in our most private moments, a reminder that security is never as absolute as we might hope. Story 2: The park across from my apartment had always been a place of solace. I would often walk there in the evenings, enjoying the calm and the view of the city. Lights reflecting off the pond, it was my escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, a place where I could clear my mind and unwind. But everything changed one evening when I noticed a man sitting on a park bench directly across from my apartment. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was an older man dressed in a simple gray coat with a fedora tilted at an angle. He seemed like any other park, lost in his own world. But over time, I began to realize that he was always there, sitting on that same bench at the same time every evening. It became a part of my routine to see him as I left my apartment and walked to the park. What made the situation unsettling was not just his constant presence, but the way he seemed to watch me. It was as if his gaze was fixed on me, tracking my movements with a precision that felt invasive. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was observing me closely, even though we never interacted. His eyes, hidden beneath the brim of his fedora, seemed to follow me wherever I went within the park. On a chilly autumn evening, I decided to confront them. I was tired of the creeping sense of paranoia and decided it was time to address it directly. I approached the bench where he sat, his gaze still fixed ahead, seemingly oblivious to my approach. As I stood before him, he slowly turned his head to meet my eyes. "Excuse me," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I've noticed you sitting here every day. It feels like you're watching me. Is there a reason for that?" He looked at me with an expression that was both calm and enigmatic. A faint smile played at the corners of his lips. "I'm just watching over you," he said in a voice that was soft and measured. Sometimes people need a guardian, even if they don't know what this response is, and that chilled down my spine. The idea of someone claiming to watch over, particularly when it felt so intrusive, was deeply unsettling. I wanted to ask more to demand answers, but the intensity of his gaze made me hesitate. His demeanor was unnervingly serene, as though he was entirely comfortable with the discomfort that caused. I decided not to press further. He mumbled something about needing to go and walked away, feeling a wave of relief mixed with anxiety. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of his eyes on me, even though he was no longer there. It felt an overwhelming urge to escape the situation, to find a place where I could feel safe and unobserved. The following day, I began to make arrangements to move to a new apartment. I didn't share my reasons with anyone, fearing that my friends and family would think I was overreacting. I simply told them that I wanted a change of scenery. The process of packing and organizing was a distraction, but the thought of leaving the unsettling presence behind gave me a sense of urgency. The move was exhausting but exhilarating. I found a new place in a different part of the city, far from the park, and a man who had intruded on my sense of security. I hoped that over me, I realized that someone had been going through my most personal possessions, exploring the intimate details of my life. I checked the kitchen next, where I noticed that the contents of the drawers and cabinets had been disarrayed. The usually orderly kitchen was now a mess, with utensils and dishes misplaced. Even my pantry had been disturbed, with food items out of place, and some seemingly inspected. The living room was no better. My bookshelves were in disarray, with books pulled out and stacked haphazardly. The television remote and other small electronics had been moved from their usual spots. It was as if someone had systematically gone through every room, making a point to touch and examine everything. The police officers reconvened, with me discussing their findings and reassuring me that they'd continue their investigation. They advised me to make a list of any missing items and to review the security footage if I had a camera system. He nodded, but their assurance felt hollow against the backdrop of the violation I had just experienced. As the officers left, I was left alone with a lingering sense of dread. In the aftermath of the intrusion, I meticulously cataloged the missing items and took stock of the disarray. Each moved object felt like a personal affront, a reminder that someone had breached my private space and tampered with my life. The emotional impact was profound. The comfort of home had turned into a place of anxiety and fear. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of an unseen presence that had invaded my sanctuary. The intrusion into my personal space was not just physical, but psychological, leaving a lingering sense of vulnerability. In the days that followed, it tried to restore some sense of normalcy. I repaired the broken lock and had a new security system installed, hoping to regain a semblance of control and safety. I was more cautious than ever, locking doors and windows with obsessive care and avoiding any patterns that might make me target. Despite these efforts, the sense of violation remained. I found myself constantly